and we are dead. Other units and commanders will have come up to take our place.
He sent an angry letter to Enver Pasha, damning their German allies.
Liman von Sanders did not know either our army or our country, and did not have time to study the situation properly. I urge you strongly not to rely on the mental ability of the Germans headed by von Sanders, whose hearts and souls are not engaged as ours are in the defense of our country.
The Turks contained the Anzac breakout at the Cove. Gallipoli made a hero out of Mustafa Kemal. Within 8 years, he became his country's leader, earning the name Ataturk, father of the Turks. The British landing at V Beach went badly. The plan was to run the ship River Clyde onto the shore, her hold no longer full of coal, but men. But she went aground further out, exposing the British to withering Turkish fire.
The enemy commanders were sending the men down the ramps. But they could not escape the Turkish bullets. Our fire was very effective, knocking the enemy into the sea. The shore at V Beach was full of enemy corpses, like shoals of fish. The color of the sea changed with the blood from their bodies.
The other landings went well, but initial success was not quickly exploited. The Allied campaign under General Sir Ian Hamilton was cursed by poor coordination. As on the Western Front, the two sides dug into a bitter trench war. Here, an Australian cameraman scrambles back to help his assistant under fire. French officer Jean Giraudoux watched the war turn brutal.
The Australians massacre all the Turks. One Australian told me that the Turks are their national enemy.
The conditions at Gallipoli were terrible. Intense heat, bitter cold, little water. Major Burge wrote home to his mother.
Respected Madam, sitting fearlessly about 200 yards from 2 million bloodthirsty Turks, I take up my pen. I forgot to mention I've got about 6 feet of solid earth between me and them. The sun is very hot and I am very thirsty. The only thing there is to drink is water that comes from a nasty well, which tastes as if it had a dead mule in it. However, we are given purifying tablets, which are very good, and make the water taste as if it had 2 dead mules in it.
To my highborn royal wife, Ayşe, from your husband, Mustafa Mehmed, Captain, 13th Turkish Infantry. Oh, Ayşe, my morning star. I pray God to bring this all to an end. I can see our lovely Constantinople in ruins and our houses burnt to the ground. These English are very persistent, and there is no fear of death for them. They're very cruel. They watch us like wolves in the night and are upon us like the devil in the day. And why did we join in this wicked war? Ayşe, I must now take my leave of you as the sun is sinking and I must away to my devotion. God bless you, Ayşe. I wish I were at home to give you my adorations.
But Ayşe never received Mustafa's letter. it was found on his dead body by a British soldier. The Turks lost 10,000 men in one afternoon. As spring turned into summer, the stench of the dead became unbearable. Eventually, an armistice was called to bury the dead. Many Turkish soldiers were illiterate. Their experiences were reflected in their songs.
Çanakkale içinde vurdular beni. Çanakkale içinde vurdular beni. Ölmeden mezara koydular beni. Oh geçtim eyvah.
Disease became a major killer, particularly typhus and dysentery.
My old pal, he was smart and upright as a guardsman. After about 10 days, to see him crawling about, his backside hanging out. We were trying to lower him down into the latrine. I don't know what happened, but he simply rolled into this foot-wide trench. We couldn't pull him out, we didn't have any strength. He drowned in his own excrement.
Allied resolve was weakening, as Lieutenant Colonel Fahrettin realized, writing to his father.
The morale of his troops has sunk so low as to be beyond description. These fellows will eventually have to embark their troops and remove them one of these nights.
On the 20th of December 1915, they did just that. Turkish officer İzzettin Bey was woken by the duty officer at 3 o'clock in the morning.
They had spotted many frigates and military transport ships. They thought it was a new invasion. But on the contrary, the British were running away. Their situation had become hopeless. What had happened was victory and the will of Allah.
Turkish troops enter abandoned Allied trenches. They did not fire on the retreating Allies, happy just to see them go. After 9 terrible months, the hills of Gallipoli fell silent. Both sides had suffered around 250,000 casualties. But for the Turks, it was a triumph.
When the enemy finally withdrew, Constantinople was decorated from one end to the other. At night, the minarets were lit up with oil lamps. Everyone was full of joy. Pale faces began to smile. Constantinople came back to life.
The Germans were still trying to ignite a holy war, jihad, in the Middle East.
In the mosques, fiery speeches are made against the English. The excitement of the population is increasing. 60,000 Afghan riders are ready to march.
The German agents who'd slipped into the Ottoman Empire as a traveling circus were now crossing Persia, disguised as tribesmen. On the 19th of August 1915, they evaded Russian patrols and entered Afghanistan. Their mission, to raise a Muslim army against the British and invade India. The team had been on the road for 9 months and had spent much of the time arguing about what route to take and who was in charge. The answer to that was German spy Oskar von Niedermeyer. Then Enver Pasha had second thoughts. The Germans, in stirring up countries to revolt against their Russian and British masters, encouraged ideas of independence. This clashed with Enver's vision of uniting all Muslims in an expanded all-Turkic empire. Enver pulled the Turks out of Niedermeyer's mission, leaving the Germans to go it alone. And when they finally reached Kabul, the Emir of Afghanistan kept them waiting another 2 months before he'd even see them.
His Excellency listed the reasons why he could not receive us earlier. It of course had nothing to do with anything political. He compared us with tradesmen, with lots of wares from which he could pick whatever he fancied and considered necessary. Everything seemed to be a business transaction for him.
The Emir played the Germans off against the British. Great riches, even his country's independence, were at stake. He hit Niedermeyer with a demand for £10 million and 100,000 rifles and guns. While Niedermeyer's party waited for the Emir to decide whether to invade India, they blundered about, offending Muslim sensibilities.
In order to enjoy some forbidden alcohol, the soldiers secretly brewed schnapps. The first drunkard, a sight never before witnessed in Afghanistan, as it is a religious blasphemy, caused severe public anger.
The Emir had long been on the British payroll. Now they upped the bribe to keep Afghanistan on side.
There were rumours of the arrival of huge money transports from India. We worked it out that the closer this caravan got, the icier our relationship with the Emir became.
Niedermeyer and the Germans finally realized they were pawns in the Emir's game and abandoned the operation. Jihad wasn't setting the East ablaze, but it still had the power to petrify the British. And Enver had no intention of halting his expansionist plans. He sent Colmar von der Goltz, a distinguished German field marshal, to take over command in Iraq and drive the war through Persia into India. Then 72 years old, von der Goltz kept in touch with his family.
I could never have imagined that in my old age fate would take me so far out into the world, and that I would travel in the steps of Alexander the Great through countries that filled our imaginations when we were young.
Britain decided a show of strength was needed in the Middle East to persuade the Arabs that the British were the masters there, not the Germans or Turks.